Well, good morning, Collide. How are we today? Well, all three of us that are here. Good morning. How we doing? There we go. That's better. That's better. So, my name is Sam.
I'm Kayla.
And we work with Collide students here, so student group, and we just wanted to make you guys aware to invite anybody, any student who is grades 6 through 12, tonight at 5 o'clock, just like almost every Sunday night at 5 o'clock, we have student group. And we want to encourage you guys to come out. We start off the evening with some games, with some fun stuff like that, and then we actually get into the Word. We study through. So what we're actually studying right now is we're studying through the book of Galatians, and the big topics that we're talking about in Galatians are how salvation is through our faith in Christ, not in our works. And that's a big topic in Galatians. If you've never read through the book of Galatians or studied through it, I encourage you to do that. And then what we do is we talk about that. We get in discussion groups, our small groups. We go through a discussion guide, much like community groups. If you're involved in a community group, if you're not, we encourage you to get plugged into one. But yeah, we do that with our students every week, and we just want to encourage you guys, if you're grades 6 through 12, come on out tonight at 5 o'clock. We'd love to have you guys with us.
And then we have a blood drive coming up this Thursday. I know Star Mountain had a blood drive Tuesday. Fort Bush High School had a blood drive this past Thursday. Well, here's another opportunity for you guys to just give. So it's 2 to 6:30 here on Thursday. There's a sign up in the back. And then Jamie, you can see him also with a sign up back there.
Yeah, and then the last thing we want to talk about today is the offering. So if you've been with us before, you can see on the screen behind me, you got the different ways that you can give. And we just want you guys to know this is important because this gives us as a church the opportunity to give back to our community, right? It gives us the chance to go do things like we had a while back with Impact Yadkin. Other opportunities that we've had, we had the opportunity to bless another church that is a newer church, Propel Church. That's actually where Nick is at today, celebrating with them on an anniversary of theirs today. So we just want you guys to know that the money that you guys are giving is going to make a difference. It's going to make an impact in our community and beyond our community, which is a really important, really crucial thing to our church. So we just want to encourage you guys, give as you see fit, the best way that suits you and your family. So with that being said, I'm going to ask you guys to stand up, and Kayla's going to pray to get our service started this morning.
Dear Lord, thank you for this day, and just thank you for allowing us to be here this morning. I ask that you just be with Jamie as he brings the word, Lord, and just prepare our hearts, let our ears open, Lord, so that we can hear your message. I pray that if there's anyone out there that doesn't know you, that, Lord, you just stir in their hearts, and that today be the day that they seek you. I ask all these things in your name I pray. Amen.
Mistakes, but you have no mercies for me every day. Your love never fails. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. There may be pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning. Your love was far too wide. I never thought I'd reach the other side. Your love never fails. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. There may be pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning. And when the oceans rage, I don't have to be afraid, because I know that you love me. Your love never fails. Things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my good. You stay the same through the ages. Your love never changes. There may be pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning. And when the oceans rage, I don't have to be afraid, because I know that you love me. Your love never
I count on one thing: the same God that never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out. Yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Yes, I will. I count on one thing: the same God that never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. He's working all things out. Yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my
This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how. In the valley, I know that you're with me. And surely your goodness and your mercy follow me. So my weapons are praise and thanksgiving. This is how I fight my battles. And I believe you've overcome, and I will lift my song of praise for all you've done. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is This is how I fight my battles. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you.
All right, good morning, everyone. So glad you guys have joined us today. That's a quick transition for us up here, but we have made it. I just want to say thanks again to our worship team. Can we give them a hand? They do a great job leading us each and every week. And something that's always so important to me, people of God singing the praises of God in the presence of God, right? I just love getting together and worshiping, and just looking back and seeing you guys worshiping this morning was just an awesome thing for me to see and just experience. So glad you guys are here. My name's Jamie. I'm one of the pastors here. I just want to say welcome to everyone. If you're in the room or you're watching online as well, and if it's your first time here, we're glad that you guys are here. If you haven't checked out the first time guest area, it's right behind that blue wall. Just want to say thanks for you guys being here and give you guys a small gift. But if you're coming for the first time, we're jumping into kind of toward the end of a 5-week series we have entitled B.L.E.S.S. Again, we're in week 4 today. This series, again, is based on Dave Ferguson's book by that title that gives us 5 simple practices that allow us to share the good news of Jesus with those we come in contact with kind of in a natural, organic way. And those practices are begin with prayer, listen, eat, serve, and story. So we've gone through the first 3, and today we're going to talk about serve. But last week, Nick continued this series by sharing with us the importance of sharing meals with one another, and you left with a challenge to share a meal with someone and a gift card to help with that cost. We would love to hear your stories as this is happening. You're having those chances to connect with people. Please let us know. Reach out to us. Tell your group leaders. Talk about it. Share those stories that you're having. We'd love to be able to share that with everybody. I had somebody in my group just text me and share how they were able to bless their co-workers, and that was just an awesome thing. So we want to hear that, get that momentum going, and those stories are powerful. Also, I wanted to share, if you didn't take a card, maybe you were like, I don't know who I'm going to take out, who I'm going to bless, or you're like, I don't want to take something from the church. Like, number one, we bought these things to give to you, and that's kind of like, as you're giving, this is the way we can bless you back. Take one. Don't feel bad about that. And if you're not sure who you're going to take out yet, get the card, because you don't know when the opportunity is going to arise. You're like, man, I wish I had that gift card to take them out. So those are in the back today. We've got plenty left, so please take one and see. Begin with prayer, right? Asking God who He would allow you to bless. Listen to them, and then have a chance to eat with them. So today we're going to talk about, again, the 4th practice, which is to serve, right? So once you begin with prayer, you begin to listen to people and to places. You share a meal with someone. There's a good chance by then you'll have known how you can best serve that person that God is asking you or telling you, encouraging you to bless. And we want to start in a familiar place, right? We've talked about how Jesus prayed, how He listened, how He ate, and now we're going to talk about how He served. Matthew 20, verse 28 tells us the type of servant that Jesus was. It just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give His life as a ransom for many, right? We all know that Jesus served in an eternal way by going to the cross and gave His life for us. Maybe that's obvious. Obviously, that's hugely important, but we're all thankful for that, right? Are we thankful that Jesus went to the cross for us? Are we? I'm not sure. Are we? Okay, all right, so we are thankful that Jesus went to the cross for us, gave up His life, served in that way. But another way He served, and maybe that we can overlook, is what the B.L.E.S.S book calls a world-changing shift. A world-changing shift in the timeline of Jesus' life and His ministry. This event takes place just before the Lord's Supper, the Last Supper that Nick talked about last week. So what Jesus did in His last encounter with the disciples, with His closest followers, with His closest friends prior to the crucifixion and just before He shared the Passover meal and communion, was a world-changing shift. Okay? Jesus knew that His time was coming to an end. He knew He would soon be arrested and put to death. What He did in that upper room was a shift that put to rest a lie that had plagued humanity since the beginning. The lie is that to be blessed, then we have to look out for ourselves more than anyone else, right? We can think that we've got to focus on us in order to get blessed. So here's the story, John 13, 1 through 17. It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for Him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved His own who were in the world, He loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under His power and that He had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." "No," said Peter, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." Then Lord, Simon Peter replied, "Not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Jesus answered, "Those who have a bath need only to wash their feet. Their whole body is clean, and you are clean, though not every one of you." For he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said not everyone was clean. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly, I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is the messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them." Interesting. There's that word blessed again coming up, right? So we see the story there, kind of set the precedence for what's going on. So I think there's three things that Jesus clearly does right here, three sacrifices that he makes, three shifts he makes for people and for the future of the church. All right, Jesus first sets aside his authority for an apron. Jesus set aside his place on a pedestal for his people. All right, and Jesus sets the example for everyone, right? So sets down his authority, puts on an apron, sets aside his place on that pedestal for his people, and sets the example for everyone, right? First, he sets aside his authority for an apron. So I'm going to put on an apron too. Shout out to Collide Kids, all right? Putting on my Collide Kids crew member apron. Let's see if I can tie this thing or not. So, yeah, just as a visual for you guys. I don't put on an apron very often. You can tell that I don't do that. On the side. Thank you, Zach. All right. Now I can see what I'm doing. That's amazing how that helps. All right. Almost. Okay, there we go. A little tight. It'll be all right. Okay, so he set aside his authority for an apron, right? Verse 1 says that Jesus knew that his hour had come, right? He knew that the end was imminent. His time was up. So how would he spend these last few minutes or hours with those who would carry on his mission and would help the church to spread all over the world, right? Dave Ferguson in the book says he set down his crown for an apron. Jesus sets the authority that he holds as God to the side and gets really vulnerable with these guys. He takes off his outer clothing and wraps a towel around his waist. Like maybe for us it would be like putting on an apron, right? It's clear that he assumes a posture of service. He pours water into a basin and begins to wash their feet. So you guys, in the first century, the feet were two of the dirtiest areas of the body. I'm sure that's still the case for us today. I have some gross feet. I know some of the other guys probably do as well, right? But just imagine no nail clippers, no pedicures, no socks, in a culture where shoes were seldom worn, right? In this agrarian culture, it was almost impossible to avoid stepping into stuff, right? That would make your feet truly disgusting. So for a meal like this, Jesus' friends would kind of have reclined at a table. They probably would have been sitting in chairs. I know we see that picture of them at the Last Supper, like at a table. Probably they were like, the table was low, and they were reclined back. And it's possible that somebody beside you whose gnarly feet was right by your head, okay? So there was no one there to wash the disciples' feet. So Jesus steps in, right? And in that time, keep in mind that the honor and shame culture, protecting your reputation and dignity was critically important. Your honor was like your credit rating. The higher your honor score, the more privilege and prestige you enjoyed. If you had a high honor score, other people were expected to serve you. So washing feet in public would be a great way to tank your honor score, right? No one would want to risk that. But Jesus did, right? Jesus was willing to do that. If there was anyone in the room that had honor and privilege, it was Jesus. All right, I know it may be hard for us to do, but let's think if Jesus was simply a man. If we take out him being God, the deity that he was, right? He was a really well-respected teacher, right? So apart from his divinity, there's no way he should have been the one in the room that was washing feet based on their culture, right? Now, I know we don't see Jesus apart from him being fully God. So again, with that tied in, who he was as a human and who he was as God, there is no way he should have been the one that stepped up to do this, but he did it anyway. He took off his proverbial crown and laid aside his authority and put on an apron and served, right? Notice the response of Peter, right? Peter's the guy who's always going to speak up and talk and share his opinion. He said, Jesus, what in the world are you doing washing my feet? And Jesus responds, Peter, you may not understand this right now, but soon enough you will. And at this point in the story, we see that Jesus sets aside his place on a pedestal for his people. All right, so think about this picture, the Messiah, the one who came as King of the Jews, taking the place of a servant and washing feet, right? I feel like kind of ironic, right? The Queen of England just passed away, so we kind of have been into that a little bit. If you've the aura of the royal family, right? So we think about that a little bit with the Queen just passing away. But we're now thinking of a king. If we think of a king, we think of a throne, right? With people bowing down to the man on that throne. But in this instance, the king, the Messiah, the Savior, the leader of these men, the teacher is the one on bended knee taking the place of the servant and washing feet. He isn't the one on the pedestal. He's the one serving his people. So my challenge to you guys in the room, leaders in this church, are we serving others or are we acting as if certain tasks may be below us? Bosses, people in the room who you're over people at work, they report to you. As Christians in our workplaces, how do we treat our employees? Do we show them that respect? Do we serve them? Are we willing to help them, whatever they have going on? Moms and dads, do we lead in serving in our own homes? Right? Now, finally, we see that Jesus sets the example for everyone. Jesus made the disciples' feet clean on the way to making all of us fully clean on the cross, right? So what Jesus did in the upper room the night before his crucifixion it was way more than just a kind gesture. It was that. They needed their feet to be washed to enjoy that meal, but it was meant to catalyze a movement. Again, it was a huge paradigm shift in the ministry and in the church that was to come. Our world believes the higher you rise and the more power and wealth you accumulate, the more leverage you have to get others to serve you. But Jesus takes the idea and says, here's what it really looks like to bless the world. You serve. Here's what it looks like to lead. You serve. Here's what it looks like to show others who I am and who my Father God is. You serve them. Followers, here's how you're going to grow my kingdom and spread the church. Are you going to go and tell people about me? Of course you are. You're going to share the gospel, but also you're going to serve the people that you come in contact with. For this to be one of the last things that Jesus did for his disciples and in their presence, those who would, again, start the church, this was massive for their future ministry, right? It was a huge thing. So to further see how Jesus served, I want us to look at an encounter that he had with the man as he was traveling. This is from Mark 7:31 through 37. Then Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and went through Sidon down the Sea of Galilee and into the region of Decapolis. Then some people brought him to a man who was deaf and could hardly talk, and they begged Jesus to place his hand on him. After he took him aside, away from the crowd, Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears. Then he spit and touched the man's tongue. He looked up to heaven, and with a deep sigh said to him, Ephphatha, which means be opened. At this, the man's ears were opened, his tongue was loosened, and he began to speak plainly. Jesus commanded them not to tell anyone, but the more he did so, the more they kept talking about it. People were overwhelmed with amazement. He has done everything well, they said. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute to speak. So this story, this encounter offers three specific lessons about how Jesus served other people. He served those in proximity, he served them personally, and he served them powerfully. So proximity, those people close to him, personally, he made it really about that person he was with, and in a powerful way, right? So first we see that he served people in proximity to him. Verse 32 tells us that the people brought the man to Jesus, right? They brought him to Jesus as Jesus was going through. This man was already close to Jesus physically. Jesus was traveling, kind of talked through the areas he was going through, from Tyre down through Sidon, down to the Sea of Galilee, and into Decapolis. So Jesus is on the move, right? He's not stationary. He's on the move. But who does he serve? He serves someone that is in close proximity to him, someone who is brought to him where he is already at. All right, Dave Ferguson says in the B.L.E.S.S book, too often when it comes to serving, we want to do something that's big and bold. We might not say it out loud, but if we're honest, we prefer to do something that gets a little bit of attention, right? Something that looks good on a social media post, something that tells a big story, something that gets people to look at us, something that looks like we poured tons of resources into it, right? We want those things if we're honest and we look inside of our hearts. Now, I hope that God does use you and me and us as Collide Church to do some huge things for him, but here's what I don't want us to miss out on. I don't want us to miss the everyday ways that we can serve those who are in close proximity to us. Those we come in contact with as we live, we work, and we play. Those who are right in front of our faces. If we're looking to serve, I can't think of a better place to start than with the people that are near to us. The book also says, our mission lies wherever our feet take us. Our mission lies wherever our feet take us. Now, it's super easy to say, well, what about Jesus in the story, right? It sure looks like he was traveling, right? He went from Tyre to Sidon and then to Sea of Galilee and then to Decapolis. This was a distance of 80 miles. For them in that time, that's a long trip, right? 80 miles. This man he served wasn't right in front of Jesus, but think of it this way when it comes to serving. I love this idea. God has either sent you the people you are going to serve, or he is going to send you to the people you're going to serve, all right? Either way, they're going to be in your path. Either they're right where you are, or God's going to call you to go to where they are. As Jesus was traveling, God put people he would serve, including this man, right into his path. Now, does that mean we shouldn't plan mission trips, both near and far, to serve people? Absolutely not, right? I do think those things need to be prayed over and strategically planned out, and ongoing partnerships need to be made. We do need to have those things, right? Community groups, should we be planning times to serve our ministry partners? Of course we should, right? Please do this, and in fact, I love if you did it every 3 months. All right, that's my plea for you today. Do it every 3 months or so. You will bless and encourage them more than you can believe. You'll be a light to those you're around, and I hope you'll have chances to share your faith. Also, again, you will make me really glad and proud to be your pastor, more so than I already am, right? But even more, be looking to serve people every day and everywhere. As you go, wherever you go, be looking to serve those people you come in contact with. All right, so it's safe to say that the people you are to serve will be in close proximity to you. Next, Jesus served others personally. Particularly, Jesus served this man personally, right? Verse 33 says, he took him aside away from the crowd. All right, now, many times when people take us aside, that may not be good, right? Think about your parents taking you to the side when you were younger, right? Don't do that. Don't take me aside, all right? We may think that. And that result may have been painful to you. But Jesus here, he's taking this man aside. It's not to punish him. It's to serve him, right? Now, if you're like me, maybe you have the question, like, why did he do that? Why didn't he just heal him right there, right? He healed many people publicly, so why did he do it differently here? And Mark tells us that the man was deaf and he had a speech impediment. Jesus knew that when he tried to talk, it would draw attention to him and to his disability, right? So he served him in a way that showed dignity and grace to him. Also, do you find the way that Jesus served the man to be interesting? Again, he takes the man away from the crowd. He doesn't just speak and heal the man. He touched the man's ears And then in a really interesting move and something that would not fly in the post-COVID world, he spit on his hands and touched the man's tongue. Like, that's pretty gross, right? I don't advise you trying that one. All right, what would you think if someone spit in their hand and tried to touch your tongue? You'd probably punch them in the face. All right, so what if this person was Jesus? That's an interesting thing to ponder. Would you let Jesus himself spit on his hand and touch your tongue? All right, I hope you would, but you'd be like, what are you doing, Jesus? Like, why are you doing it this way? Right, so, but the point is, even if it was gross and it was unusual, it was highly personal, right? Do I believe that this man who couldn't hear and couldn't talk very well would have figured out that Jesus healed him by speaking? I do think he would have figured that out, but he wanted him to be able to follow along in the process. So as he touched his ears and as he touched his tongue, this man who couldn't hear, could barely speak, could understand what was going on in the process, right? Jesus wasn't just going around healing everyone he came in contact with. And in this instance, he made it highly personable, right? So as you serve people, in particular the ones that you're looking to bless, see how you can make it personal, right? This is the part that really builds on the other messages that we have already heard. Are you praying to God to ask him to give you opportunities to serve that person? Are you listening to those you are blessing? Do you know their history and their heart and their habits and their hurts? Right? Can you serve them in a way that addresses one of these areas? As you look to serve others as you go, do you consider the 4 P's of a place and to better generally serve those, the pain, the pennies, the power, the parties, right? Do you know the area you're in and know what ways you could serve people in that area that would be impactful and would be personal to them? Make your serving personal. Make it memorable. Include a handwritten note. Get the person something they really like. Take them to a place they love to go to. Make them know you care by going the extra mile and making it personal. Right? Finally, Jesus served people powerfully. This may seem obvious, but let's not overlook the fact that he indeed did heal the man, right? He asked God to open the man's ears and free him from his inability to speak, and it happened. We have access to the same power that Jesus accessed. Just a few verses over from Jesus washing the disciples' feet, he says this in John 14:12. Very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these because I am going to the Father. Even greater things than Jesus, that's pretty hard for us to believe. That's what Jesus himself says, right? And Dave Ferguson in the book drives home the point when he says, when you are serving people, if they are sick, pray and ask God to heal them. If they have an addiction, ask God to free them. If they are in a relationship that is hopeless, ask God to reconcile them. You have access. We have access to a powerful God, right? Don't overlook the power that you have that access to. And as we begin with prayer and as we serve, let's ask God to show his power in these situations and circumstances. Yes, Jesus did personally serve these people who were in proximity to him, but he did so in a very powerful way. Of all these amazing characteristics, and there are so many, one that we truly can take on is to have a servant's heart, to look for ways to serve those around us and to make serving be who we are, right? It should be like it's in our DNA as believers. We should follow the example that Jesus set for us as he washed the feet of the disciples and then showed the care and love he showed that man as he healed them, and they went away as well. So Sam's going to come up now. We've got a little illustration that I want to do real quick, and then he's going to give us some takeaways from this. So give us just a second. We'll get some stuff out of our way. And y'all bear with me. I think this will speak to you guys. Anybody out there, where are my parents at? You've been a parent, you've got small kids, grandparents. How about soccer moms, soccer dads? Okay. What is more fun than helping your 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, however old? Hopefully at some point, y'all tell me when you're older kids, can they put on their own shin guards and socks and shoes, or do you have to help them the whole time? All right, I'm looking forward to the day when they can do it all by themselves. Okay, so this is kind of an example that I saw the other day. Like, okay, let's pretend that Sam is Hattie or Mazzy. Maybe not quite. So this is how I was trying to tie their shoes the other day. So I was sitting down, right, and they were on the ground. And I'm like, all right, get your foot up here, Sam. Like, okay.
I'm not this flexible. I'm sorry.
So I'm going to untie his shoe, right? Sam, how's this feel for you?
Not good.
Okay.
It's not good.
How's it? It doesn't feel good for me either.
Yeah,
this is a terrible angle for me to try to tie your shoe.
Uncomfortable.
Right. So
awkward.
If we're serving people, sometimes we want to still be on the throne and be comfortable, right? And like get them up to where I'm at, okay? But what's a lot easier for you tying your kids' shoes or Sam's or whatever it may be is if I let Sam assume the place and I get down. Thanks for untying your shoe again. How's this for you?
Much better.
It's much easier for me as well.
Much better.
It's amazing how that is, right? And I haven't tried to make you do something you didn't want to. I gave you the seat. I gave you the place. That was much better. So think about that, guys. I know it's practical. Practically, as you're tying your kids' shoes, but as you're serving people, like, get off your throne, get off your chair, get down, put your apron on, serve that, get that position of servant, and do it. Tying your shoes would be easier. Serving would be a lot easier as well, right? I'm going to turn it over to Sam now.
Yeah. So, yeah, that, and in all reality, that much more comfortable. Just telling y'all, as a grown man, it's much more comfortable for me to sit in the chair than stretch my leg up at that angle. I'm not as flexible maybe as I once was playing football and stuff. But we've seen Jamie has shared some pretty in-depth ideas about how being a servant was played out in the Bible, but more specifically, how Jesus served, right? Like that is the example that we have set in front of us. And he came to serve all of humanity, right? Not just this one person or just the disciples, but he came to serve all of us. And the question is, church, how does this affect us? Like, what is our response, right? The first response we should have is we should worship, right? Like we should praise the Lord for sending his son, Jesus, to die in our place. That should be our first response in all things, right? Because we are blessed. We don't go bless others so that we can in turn be blessed. We have the blessing, right? If we have placed our faith in Christ, then we have the greatest blessing we could ever ask for, and that is deliverance from our sin. So the question is, what is our physical response to that? What do we do? So you see, church, as Jamie mentioned, Jesus didn't really plan out his service, right? He did it with the people that were around him. Now, I will say, yeah, there were some events where, he fed the 5,000, that kind of thing. It's a pretty big event, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. But the majority of Jesus' acts of service were to people who were around him, in close proximity, near him. So what does that look like for us, right? Jesus wasn't looking for the applause of men. He was looking for affirmation from the Father. So he didn't have to have the crowd. He didn't have to have people looking at him saying, oh, congratulations, good job. No, he wanted affirmation from his Father. So what would it look like for us to be a church, a family, right? Your family, your community group, to be a group that serves on the go, that looks for ways that we can serve. And y'all, serving's messy, right? Jesus, in all his deity, get that right, Jesus didn't set aside his deity, right? He, in all of his deity, in all of his goodness and all his perfection, stooped down to wash the feet of the disciples. Those same disciples who, number one, they were sinners, right? Number two, they would turn their back on him. They would deny him. They would sell him out. He still did it. And on top of that, as Jamie already mentioned, their feet were disgusting, right? There's no telling what were on their feet. But yet Jesus still served these people because he understood that this example would be a game changer. It would turn the world on its end through this act of service. Because, serving creates ties to a community that a church can't. Now, hear me out on this, right? Your acts of service in your circles of proximity, they can create ties that our church can't. I know in my community that I live in, my little neighborhood, there are people who probably would never come in the doors of this church. But if my wife and I, or our community group, if we serve these people, then it can create that tie, can create that bond, that relationship to where we could open up the door for a gospel conversation, right? And because of that, maybe one day they'll set foot in a church. Maybe one day they'll come to place their faith in Jesus Christ. And that is so important, right? We don't have to plan it out. Those people that are around us, that's so important. So one of the simple things that we could do, this is one of the first things that popped in my mind when I was thinking about what's a practical way. How many of y'all live in a little neighborhood or a little community where you get like the public waste service coming through, right, where they dump your trash cans, okay? So I didn't grow up in that community. Like, we had to take our trash off, all that stuff. But then I moved into the little town of Boonville, right, and they have public trash service. But inevitably, in the little community that we live in, every week when the trash comes through, somebody's trash can is left like flipped over on the side of the street. I saw one the other day that was literally in the middle of the road, like on the left-hand lane coming through, okay? Well, what would hurt, right? Instead of driving on past that trash can, what if we set it back up and our neighbors saw us doing that, right? A little act of service as we go. It's not that big of a deal right now. Granted, it can get messy, it can get dirty, right? But how big of a difference could that make in somebody's life, right? And it's simple, right? It's nothing crazy. You know, it's not like, you know, we're out here doing something magnificent, something extravagant, something crazy. It's just setting up a trash can, right? Looking for ways that we can serve on the go. Or maybe we can just drop some food at a neighbor's house. I know we talked about food last week, but church, how important is it for us to, number one, for us to eat, and then how big of a relationship can we develop with people around us over food? That's important. That's another topic or another way that we can make a difference. Or maybe you could ask if your family could pick up yard work for somebody for a week, right? Little things like this can make a huge difference when it comes to serving. It doesn't have to be Impact Yadkin every week, y'all, right? We don't have to make this huge plan and bring all these people together. I would dare argue that the more impactful thing is us as a church serving our community and serving those circles of proximity that we've discussed about where we live, where we play, where we work. Those things would make a bigger difference over time than just Impact Yadkin. I'm not taking anything away from large-scale serving events. But when we have been changed by the gospel and we want to impact, we want to change our communities, service is the way we do that. Serving on the go in little ways that maybe you don't even think of, little ways that we may pass up. But here's the question, church. Here's the big question. Are we looking for it? Right? Because it's not natural. As Jamie's already said, it's not natural. We want to keep ourselves on the throne, right? We want to keep our crown on our heads because we want to look out for number one. That's most of the time ourselves, right? So the question is, are we looking for it? This is not something that just happens overnight where you wake up one day and then every day from here on out, you're going to be a servant-hearted person that just looks for ways to serve. This is something that takes time. It's a discipline. It's something we have to pray that God would change our hearts. So are we looking for it, church? Are we looking for ways that we can serve those people around us? Because if we're not, then we've got to pray that God would change our hearts, break our hearts for our communities, for our workplace friends, the people that we know where we, again, live, where we play, and where we work. That's the question, church. And you see, sometimes it's dirty. Moving trash is not the most glamorous thing, and quite frankly, cooking a meal is not the most glamorous thing, is it? Because then you got to clean the dishes, clean the kitchen after all that's over. But you see, like I said a minute ago, Jesus set all those things aside because he realized the difference and the impact that serving the people around him could make. And I dare argue, church, serving people where we live, where we play, and where we eat is one of the most important things that you and I can do as someone who has placed their faith in Jesus. Serving people in those areas, that is one of the most important things that we can do. So I'm going to ask you guys to stand. We're going to sing one more song. Our worship team is going to lead us. So I ask that you just respond. Our prayer team will be in the back. So just respond as you feel led.
Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet. Your promise still stands, great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands, this is my confidence, you've never failed me yet. I know the night won't last, your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again. Jesus, you're still enough. Keep me within your love. My heart will sing your praise again. Your promise still stands, great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands, this is my confidence, you've never failed me. Your promise still stands, great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands, this is my confidence, you've never failed me yet. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail me. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail me, and you never fail me yet, and I never will forget. No, you've never failed me yet, and I never will forget.
All right, church. So, a couple things before we go today. The first thing, I have this rag, and everyone, as you go out, we want to encourage you guys to pick up one of these white rags. Now, why? Because sometimes serving gets messy, right? And we need something, we got to wipe our hands off, or maybe we need to wipe someone's feet, right? So, as a reminder on ways to serve, we want to encourage everyone to grab one of these white washcloths, these white towels as you go out the door. The other thing, we do have some gift cards left over from last week where we, again, want to encourage you guys to find someone, take them out to eat, bless them in that way. Maybe it spurs a gospel conversation and someone comes to place their faith in Jesus through that opportunity to share a meal with them. And then lastly, I just want to remind you guys, students 6th grade through 12th grade, 5 o'clock tonight. We'd love to see you guys come out for student group. It's going to be a good time. So with that being said, church, that is all. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Sunday.